All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. 5 years ago, Los Angeles Clippers team owner Steve Ballmer sought out to make a splash in the hopes of getting his franchise out of the huge shadow in Southern California that is the Los Angeles Lakers. Ballmer was able to sign Kawhi Leonard, fresh off of helping the Toronto Raptors win an NBA championship, while also acquiring Paul George from the Oklahoma City Thunder, as this was supposed to be the duo that changed the fortunes of the Clippers. Now, we saw the Clippers struggle in the 2020 NBA playoffs, which resulted in head coach Doc Rivers being fired. They got to the Western Conference Finals in 2001 for the first time in franchise history with a depleted roster, then being one and done in each of the last 2 years in the playoffs, as it became quite clear that it was hard to count on Kawhi Leonard and PG 13 as they were in street clothes almost as much as they were in uniform. We've seen the Clippers over the last couple of years add the likes of future Hall of Famers Russell Westbrook and James Harden to the equation, okay? But it still hasn't worked. And now we saw Paul George decide to opt out in free agency when he and the Clippers could not agree on an extension, which resulted in him signing with the Philadelphia 76ers. And in doing so, this franchise was somewhat left empty handed as they gave up so much to get Paul George and they really didn't get anything back in return. You think about it. The Clippers gave up 5 first-round picks and Shea Gilgis Alexander, just to name some of the package that they had to give up or were willing to give up to get PG 13 from OKC. But I know that, Paul George goes by the nickname PG 13, but honestly, right now, this should be rated R. And the reason why is because the Clippers gave up so much and they just screwed themselves, or they have screwed themselves in trying to get that championship. So I'll give credit where credit's due. Steve Ballmer, he swung for the fences and missed. Okay, and it's better to try and fail than not try and not and of course not have anything happen. But his Clippers have been good enough to make the playoffs. Okay, we've seen that, but they're not title contenders right now. Okay, and now you got Paul George who's gone. The Clippers still have an aging Westbrook and James Harden along with Kawhi. But for me, Kawhi simply just is part of the NBA reserves. Why? Because 1 week in a month, 3 weeks out of the season, he'll show up and play. That much you're guaranteed for the rest of the time. You don't know when you're going to get Kawhi Leonard out there on the court. And unfortunately for Balmer, it's back to the drawing board because he has tried. I will give him credit for that. I cannot say the same for his predecessor with the Clippers, Donald Sterling. But Balmer has tried, but it has not worked. So, will Balmer ever get that elusive NBA championship that he is seeking with the Clippers? Maybe at some point, but I think what Balmer and the Clippers need to do, okay, when you go out there and try to get these stars and these superstars in free agency, there's only like a couple of guys who over the years have been able to do it and get that championship. Okay, a lot of these guys, they're hiding. And the reason why I say it, they're stars in superstar packages, so to speak, because at the end of the day, the term superstar is thrown out too much. There's only a handful, maybe less than a handful of guys that you can, say are superstars. The rest are stars. And, Kawhi and Paul George, they're not superstars. They're stars. All right. And it's one of those where the Clippers, I totally get it. They felt like, this combo could be everything that they needed to get that championship, and it wasn't. You've heard stories behind the scenes. as far as the preferential treatment that both Kawhi and Paul George have gotten, being unable to stay healthy. And at the end of the day, your best ability is your availability. You cannot help your team win if you are not healthy enough to go out there and give it a go. But I think what the Clippers need to do is something that they have not done in a very long time, if that much. They have to build from within because if you think about it right now, those picks and SGA, where would the Clippers have been at this point if they had just said no thank you to this whole deal? All right. And it's one of those, it clearly has not worked. And, you really don't have anything to show for it besides a lot of spent money and parting with a lot of picks. If you're the Clippers, they got to the Western Conference Finals one time in 2021. We were teased the last couple of years in the postseason as far as what could have been for the Clippers, only to see Kawhi and Paul George have to deal with injuries over the years, and they weren't the only ones. So I know that Balmer, he's going into a new arena, okay, in Inglewood. And he wants to try to get from out of that shadow that is the Lakers. The Clippers, as long as they're in LA, they're always going to be in the Lakers' shadow because the Lakers are the Lakers. The Lakers could win 20 games and people would still show up to support them more than the Clippers. The Lakers are an established brand. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I get it that you're attempting to get from out of that shadow and make the headlines, but I think the best thing for the Clippers to do, they have to build slowly, okay, and just try to build it piece by piece, as far as just trying instead of trying to do this microwave championship thing. It has not worked for them, and I don't think it is going to work for them. They brought back Ty Lue as their head coach. Ty Lue is a solid head coach. Okay, they've gone out there and they have made some moves in free agency. They just signed Mo Bamba today, bringing in Derrick Jones Jr., bringing back Nicholas Batum. You re-signed Harden and Westbrook. All of that's good. All of that is good enough to get you to the postseason. But the Clippers are still not a championship team. They mortgaged their future trying to win that championship. And it's one of those where it was a high risk, high reward type deal. And they took the high risk, but they did not get that high reward. Paul George and Kawhi, they came back to the state of California uh, with with basically to say, you know what, high expectations, and it just didn't work out, and it was a tall task. To me, I really do believe the Clippers' best shot to win a championship with this core was in 2020. Okay. And things, got turned upside down that year. We saw a different format for the postseason. We knew that somebody had to win. But then, in the playoffs, we saw a Clippers team that basically played like they didn't want to be there in Florida. They had to fight, scrap, and claw to come back and get past the first round against Dallas. And then in the second round, they were up 3-1. They had double digit leads in games 5, 6, and 7 on Denver. And when it was all said and done, they bowed out and they headed home. We never got to see that Clippers Lakers showdown in the postseason that everybody was anticipating. And at the end of the day, I think that was their best chance just due to the fact that Kawhi and Paul George have not shown that they can get healthy. I have said, how I feel about Paul George going to Philadelphia. I'm not moved by it. I don't think that is going to result in a championship in Philadelphia. And it's going to be very interesting to see what direction that the Clippers do try to go with now that PG-13 is not there. But nonetheless, it was a box office flop. If you want to talk about, a Hollywood analogy to it, the Clippers went out there, they reached for the stars, but unfortunately, they came up short. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they are going to be remembered as a duo that came in with high expectations, but they simply could not live up to them. And it's going to be very interesting to see what the Clippers do from here going forward. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 pounds of sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.